You've been living off my success for 35 years. You should be grateful I even keep a roof over your head." My husband Gerald stood in the doorway of our bedroom, arms folded across his chest, looking at me like I was some kind of charity case he'd been tolerating all these years. I was holding a shopping bag from Macy's. Inside was a new blouse I'd bought on sale for $23. $23. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I smiled. "You're absolutely right," I said. "From now on, I'll make sure to pay my own way." You should have seen his face. He'd expected tears. He'd expected me to beg, to apologize, to promise I'd be more careful with his money. That's how it always went in his mind. But I just agreed. And that, dear friends, was the beginning of the most eye-opening 4 months of Gerald's life. Welcome to my channel. I share new life stories here every day, and I would truly appreciate it if you hit subscribe and gave this video a like. Now, let's continue with the story. I'm sure you'll find it worth your time until the very end. My name is Dorothy. I'm 62 years old, and until that evening in April, I had been married to Gerald for 35 years. We met when I was 24, working as a pediatric nurse at Boston Children's Hospital. He was 26, fresh out of college with a degree in mechanical engineering and big dreams of climbing the corporate ladder. He was charming back then, ambitious, full of energy. He used to surprise me with picnics in the park, with handwritten love notes tucked into my lunch bag. We got married 2 years after we met. I was still working as a nurse, pulling 12-hour shifts, sometimes nights, sometimes weekends. Gerald was starting his career at a small engineering firm, making decent money but nothing spectacular. We were happy, we were partners. Then Gerald decided he wanted more. He wanted an MBA from a prestigious program. He got accepted to Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management. The tuition was astronomical, and we had no savings to speak of, so I took on extra shifts. I worked nights, weekends, holidays. For 2 years, I was the sole breadwinner of our household while Gerald studied. I paid our rent. I paid our bills. I paid for his textbooks and his suits for networking events and his fancy dinners with potential employers. I did all of this while also cooking, cleaning, and making sure he had everything he needed to succeed. He graduated with honors. He got a job at a Fortune 500 company, making 3 times what I made as a nurse. And slowly, gradually, imperceptibly, my contributions began to disappear from his memory. We had 2 children. Our son Michael lives in Chicago now with his wife and 3 kids. Our daughter Karen is in Austin, divorced, working as a marketing executive. Good kids. They turned out well, mostly because I was there for every school play, every soccer game, every parent-teacher conference, every scraped knee and broken heart, while Gerald was traveling for work or staying late at the office or networking at golf courses. When did things change? I couldn't tell you exactly. It happened so slowly, like water wearing away at stone. Gerald's salary kept growing. His ego grew with it. Somewhere along the way, he started believing that his success was entirely his own, that my decades of support were irrelevant, that my nursing career of 30 years was insignificant compared to his corner office and his stock options. I retired at 60 after 30 years of nursing. My back couldn't take it anymore. Standing for 12-hour shifts, lifting patients, the physical demands had finally caught up with me. I had a decent pension, good benefits. I thought retirement would be peaceful. Gerald retired a year later, at 63. He'd been pushed out during a corporate restructuring, given a generous severance package, and told to enjoy his golden years. He did not take it well. Suddenly, the man who'd been important, who'd had an assistant and a corner office and people who answered to him, was just another retiree with too much time on his hands. That's when he became obsessed with our finances. He started tracking every expense, questioning every purchase, acting like we were on the verge of bankruptcy. We weren't. Between his pension, my pension, our Social Security, and our savings, we were more than comfortable. But you wouldn't know it from the way he acted. Why did you buy organic milk? Regular milk is cheaper. Do you really need another book? The library is free. $50 at the hair salon? That's ridiculous. It wore me down. I started paying cash for things so he wouldn't see them on the credit card statement. I started hiding purchases in the trunk of my car, bringing them in when he was in the shower. I became a criminal in my own home, and my crime was buying a bottle of hand lotion. Then came his high school reunion in April. Gerald went back to Ohio for 4 days to reconnect with old friends, relive glory days, do whatever men do when they gather to pretend they're still young and relevant. He came back different, more righteous, more condescending. Apparently, his old buddy Stan had spent the whole reunion complaining about his wife's spending. Stan's solution was what he called a financial independence arrangement. Separate accounts, separate expenses, each spouse responsible for their own costs. Fair and transparent, Stan called it. Revolutionary, Gerald decided. And so, standing in our bedroom with a $23 blouse in my hands, I was informed that our marriage was now operating under new rules. His pension was his, my pension was mine. We'd split the mortgage and utilities 50-50, and everything else was our individual responsibility. No more shared accounts, no more me spending his hard-earned money. His hard-earned money, as if the 2 years I spent supporting us while he got his MBA meant nothing. As if the 30 years I spent working as a nurse while raising our children and managing our household were worthless. As if the countless hours I'd spent caring for his elderly mother before she passed, the family vacations I'd planned, the dinner parties I'd hosted for his colleagues, the social calendar I'd maintained, so he could focus on his precious career, as if all of that had no value at all. But I didn't say any of that. I just smiled and said, absolutely. That night, after Gerald went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I accessed our joint bank account and transferred exactly half of the balance into a new personal account. Gerald wanted separate finances? Separate finances he would get. Then I started a spreadsheet. I'm a retired nurse, not an accountant, but I know how to document things. Medical professionals are trained to record everything. I created columns for date, item, cost, and category. I would track every penny. The next morning, I woke up at 6 like I always did. Gerald was still asleep. He liked to sleep until 9 now that he was retired. His Highness needed his beauty rest. I made coffee for myself. Just myself. 1 cup. I ate my breakfast, Greek yogurt with fresh berries, sitting by the window watching the sunrise. I read the newspaper in peace. When Gerald finally emerged at 9:30, hair disheveled, expecting his usual breakfast of eggs, bacon, toast, and fresh squeezed orange juice on the table, he found an empty kitchen. "Where's breakfast?" he asked, looking around like the food might be hiding somewhere. "I already ate," I said from the living room where I was doing a crossword puzzle. "Well, what about me?" "There's food in the refrigerator. Help yourself." I heard him banging around in the kitchen for 20 minutes. He emerged with a bowl of cereal, looking disgruntled. The cereal was stale because he'd left the bag open last time he'd had some, 3 weeks ago. I said nothing. That afternoon, I went grocery shopping. I bought exactly what I needed for myself: a small container of cottage cheese, a single chicken breast, a bag of mixed greens, 1 avocado, 2 apples. The total came to $22.17. When I got home, I took a strip of blue painter's tape and divided our refrigerator in half. My side on the left, his side on the right. I put my groceries away on my side. Gerald came home from the golf course to find this new arrangement. He stared at the refrigerator like it had personally offended him. "What is this?" "Organization," I said. "My food on the left, yours on the right, fair and transparent, just like you wanted." He opened his side. It was nearly empty. Some leftover Chinese takeout from last week, a jar of pickles, half a stick of butter. But I didn't go shopping. That sounds like a personal problem. The first week was brutal, for him, not for me. Gerald had never done grocery shopping in his life. I don't mean that as hyperbole. I mean literally never. In 35 years of marriage, he had not once pushed a cart through a supermarket and selected items for purchase. He didn't know where the bread was. He didn't know how to pick produce. He didn't know that you need to check expiration dates on dairy products. He came home from his first solo shopping trip with green bananas, moldy strawberries, and a gallon of milk that was expiring the next day. He bought a whole raw chicken and then stood in the kitchen staring at it like it was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "How do you cook this thing?" he asked. "There are recipes online," I said, not looking up from my book. He ordered pizza that night. and the next night, and the night after that. By the end of the first week, he'd spent over $250 on takeout. I spent $68 on groceries and ate beautifully. I kept meticulous records, every receipt, every expense, every cent documented in my spreadsheet. I also started a second spreadsheet. This one was historical. I spent 5 nights going through old bank statements, credit card bills, and receipts I'd saved over the years. Gerald always mocked me for keeping what he called junk in boxes in the basement. "Why do you save all this garbage?" he'd say. "Well, Gerald, this is why. I documented everything I'd spent on our household for the past 15 years. Groceries, utilities, which I always paid because Gerald forgot once and we had our electricity shut off. Christmas gifts for his entire family. Birthday presents for his mother. Anniversary dinners that I always arranged and paid for because he always forgot. New furniture for the living room. Repairs for the dishwasher, the washing machine, the HVAC system, his annual golf club membership. Yes, I'd been paying for that too. He'd asked me to handle it 6 years ago because he was too busy, and I'd just kept handling it ever since. Country club dues, dry cleaning bills, the new suits he needed for work, the expensive watches he wanted for Christmas. All of it documented, categorized, totaled. The number made my eyes water. In the past 15 years alone, I had spent $63,000 on things that benefited both of us, or specifically him. $63,000 from my nursing salary and my pension. The woman who was supposedly living off his success. I didn't confront him with this information. Not yet. I was waiting for the perfect moment. That moment came in June, 7 weeks into our arrangement. Every summer, Gerald's mother used to host a big family barbecue at her house. After she passed, I took over the tradition. It was always at our house now. I did all the shopping, all the cooking, all the cleaning. Gerald's brother Robert would come with his wife Linda. His sister Patricia would come with her husband James and their 2 kids. Everyone would eat my food, drink my drinks, use my bathroom, and at the end of the night, Gerald would get all the compliments for being such a wonderful host. On the Wednesday before the barbecue, Gerald reminded me that his family was coming on Saturday. "You know the drill," he said. "Robert likes his burgers medium rare. Patricia's kids are picky, so make sure you have hot dogs. And don't forget the potato salad. Mom's recipe." I was sitting on the patio reading a novel. I didn't look up. "I'm not cooking," I said. "What do you mean you're not cooking?" "The barbecue is for your family, your expense, your responsibility." Gerald's face went through several shades. Red, purple, a strange grayish white. "Dorothy, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. We have separate finances now, remember? Your family gatherings, your cost. I'll be happy to attend as a guest." He stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. I returned to my novel. Chapter 15 was getting really good. Saturday arrived. Gerald had gone to the supermarket on Friday afternoon, his first real shopping trip for anything more than the basics. He was gone for nearly 4 hours. 4 hours. He came back with 12 bags and the haunted look of a man who'd just survived a natural disaster. "How do you do this?" he asked, collapsing onto the couch. "Do what?" "This shopping thing. There are so many choices. So many aisles. I couldn't find anything. I had to ask an employee where the ketchup was. The ketchup, Dorothy." I just smiled. At 4 o'clock, Robert and Linda arrived first. Linda was already frowning when she walked through the door. She has a sixth sense for when something is off. "Something smells different," she said, sniffing the air. "Where's the potato salad smell? You always start the potato salad early." "We're doing something different this year," Gerald said nervously. He'd set up the backyard with paper plates, plastic forks, store-bought buns, pre-made coleslaw from the deli counter, and a package of frozen burger patties that were still partially frozen in the middle. The cooler was full of beer and soda. At least he'd gotten that right, but everything else looked like a sad afterthought. Patricia and James arrived with their kids. Patricia took one look at the plastic-wrapped deli containers and turned to me. "Dorothy, what's going on? Where's the real food?" "Gerald's handling the barbecue this year," I said pleasantly. "I'm just a guest today." "Gerald's handling." Patricia looked at her brother with an expression somewhere between confusion and horror. "Gerald, You can barely make toast. I'm managing just fine, Gerald said through gritted teeth. He was not managing just fine. He struggled to light the grill for 15 minutes, while Robert offered increasingly sarcastic advice. He put the frozen patties directly on the flames, and they immediately stuck to the grates. He forgot to thaw the hot dogs, so when he put them on the grill, they split open and leaked juice everywhere. The buns got soggy from sitting too close to the ice in the cooler. I sat in a lawn chair with a glass of wine, watching the chaos unfold. Linda came and sat next to me. All right, spill. What happened? So I told her. Everything. The $23 blouse. The living off his success comment. The financial separation. Stan and his revolutionary idea. All of it. Linda's eyes went wide. She turned to look at Gerald, who was now arguing with Robert about the proper way to flip a burger. He said what to you? You heard me. After everything you've done? After you supported him through business school? After you raised those kids practically by yourself while he traveled all over the country? After you took care of his mother for 3 years when she was sick? I shrugged. Apparently none of that counted for much. Linda stood up. Oh, this is going to be good. She walked over to where Patricia was standing by the dessert table, which consisted of store-bought cookies and a slightly lopsided cake Gerald had attempted to frost himself. I watched them whisper. Patricia's face transformed from confusion to outrage in about 3 seconds. Dinner was a disaster. The burgers were burned on the outside and raw in the middle. The hot dogs were split and dried out. The store-bought coleslaw was watery. The cake had tumo frosting on one side and almost none on the other. The kids refused to eat anything and asked for McDonald's. After dinner, while Gerald was trying to clean up the mess he'd made of the grill, Patricia cornered him on the patio. I was close enough to hear every word. Gerald, Linda just told me what you said to Dorothy. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like what? You told your wife of 35 years that she's been living off your success? The same wife who worked double shifts so you could get your fancy MBA? That was a long time ago. The same wife who raised your children while you were too busy being important? Who took care of Mom when she had dementia? Who visits her grave every month and brings fresh flowers because you can't be bothered to remember? Gerald's face crumpled. Patricia, please. No, I'm not done. Dorothy has done more for this family than you will ever comprehend. She remembers every birthday, every anniversary, every preference of every person in this family. She sends cards. She makes calls. She shows up. And you had the audacity to tell her she's living off your success? Robert had walked over by this point. What's going on? Your brother told Dorothy she's been living off him for 35 years. So she stopped doing everything she usually does. This, Patricia gestured at the remnants of the disastrous barbecue, is what Gerald's success looks like without Dorothy. Robert looked around at the burned grill, the wilted decorations, the crying children demanding fast food. Then he looked at Gerald. You're an idiot, he said simply. I agree, Linda added. Patricia picked up her purse. James, kids, we're leaving. Gerald, call me when you've apologized properly. To all of us, but especially to Dorothy. She walked over to me and kissed my cheek. Good for you, Dorothy. It's about time. They left. Robert and Linda left 10 minutes later, after Robert gave Gerald a lecture about appreciating what you have before you lose it. The door closed with a definitive click, leaving Gerald alone in the backyard, surrounded by his failures, staring at me like his whole world had just collapsed. Because it had. That night, I showed him the spreadsheet. We sat at the kitchen table, my laptop between us, and I walked him through 15 years of expenses. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I just presented the facts, the way a nurse presents medical information to a patient. $63,000. That's what I had spent from my income on our shared life and on things specifically for him, and that was only what I could document. The real number was certainly higher. But that wasn't all. I also showed him a timeline I'd created. 2 years of paying all our bills while he got his MBA, 30 years of managing every aspect of our household. 10 years of handling all the social obligations for his career advancement, the dinner parties, the holiday gifts for colleagues, the networking events. 3 years of caring for his mother when she could no longer care for herself. driving her to appointments, managing her medications, holding her hand when she was confused and scared. I had calculated it all. If I had hired someone to do what I did, the cooking, the cleaning, the childcare, the elder care, the social coordination, it would have cost over $50,000 a year. Over 35 years, that was more than $1.7 million in labor. Labor I provided for free, out of love, while also working a demanding full-time job. Gerald sat there staring at the numbers. His face was ashen. "I had no idea," he whispered. "I know you didn't. That's the problem. Why didn't you ever tell me?" I closed the laptop. "Because I shouldn't have had to. You should have seen it. You should have noticed what I was doing, what I was contributing. Instead, you saw me buying a blouse and decided I was a leech." He was silent for a very long time. The clock on the wall ticked. Outside, a car drove past. Finally, he spoke. "What can I do? How can I fix this?" "I don't know if you can. 7 weeks of reality can't undo 35 years of being invisible." The next few weeks were strange. Gerald tried. He genuinely tried. He cooked dinner twice. Both times were disasters. The spaghetti was undercooked and the sauce was burned. The grilled cheese sandwiches were black on one side and raw on the other. But he tried. He did laundry for the first time in his life. He mixed colors with whites and turned all his blue dress shirts a strange shade of gray. He put my cashmere sweater in the dryer and it came out small enough for a doll. He attempted to vacuum and somehow broke the belt. He tried to clean the bathroom and used dish soap instead of tile cleaner. He watered my houseplants and drowned 3 of them. He was like a toddler learning basic life skills, stumbling and falling and getting up again. I watched without helping. It wasn't cruelty, it was education. One evening, about 3 months into our arrangement, our daughter Karen called. We were on speakerphone, both of us in the living room. "How are things?" she asked. Gerald made the mistake of mentioning our new system. Karen went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was ice cold. "Let me make sure I understand this. You told Mom, who worked double shifts for 2 years so you could get your MBA, who raised Michael and me while you were never home, who single-handedly took care of Grandma for 3 years. You told her she was living off your success?" "Karen, it wasn't. Dad, I love you. But that's the most ungrateful thing I've ever heard. Do you have any idea what Mom sacrificed for this family? For you specifically?" She listed things I'd almost forgotten myself. How I'd turned down a promotion to head nurse because it would have required more travel and Gerald's career came first. How I'd used my vacation days to chaperone their school field trips because Gerald was always too busy. How I'd stayed up all night with her when she was sick, then gone to work the next day exhausted because we needed the income while Gerald was building his career. How I'd postponed my own retirement by 2 years to help pay for Michael's wedding because Gerald had just bought his dream car and claimed we couldn't afford both. "That was Mom's money that paid for half of Michael's wedding," Karen said. "Did you know that, Dad? While you were driving around in your BMW, Mom was working extra shifts so your son could have a nice wedding. And you had the nerve to say she was living off you?" After she hung up, Gerald sat in his chair without moving for a long time. The next morning, he came to me with an envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, 5 pages long, in his careful engineer's handwriting. At the top, it said, "Things I took for granted." He'd listed everything. The meals, the clean clothes, the organized home, the social calendar that kept us connected to friends and family, the birthday cards he signed but I addressed and mailed, the Christmas presents I bought for his mother every year that he took credit for, the doctor's appointments I scheduled for him because he never remembered, the bills I paid because he was too distracted, the vacation itineraries I researched and planned, the oil changes I scheduled for both our cars, the lawn service I arranged and paid for, the handyman I called when things broke. Everything. At the bottom, he'd written, "I am a fool." I was so busy feeling important at work that I never noticed the person who made my entire life possible. "I'm sorry." I read the letter twice. My eyes were wet. "I've been thinking about this for weeks," he said. "About all the invisible things you do. Things I never noticed because they just happened, like magic. But it wasn't magic, it was you. It's always been you." I looked at him. This wasn't the arrogant man who'd accused me of spending his money. This was someone smaller, humbler, someone who'd been forced to see himself clearly for the first time. Words are easy, Gerald. I know. So let me prove it. Give me a chance. I thought about it for a long time. I talked to Patricia, who said Gerald had called her 3 times to apologize and once to ask her how to make her famous potato salad. I talked to Karen, who said her father had sent her an email acknowledging every mistake he'd made and thanking me for covering for him all those years. I talked to my friend Rose, who said old dogs rarely learn new tricks, but maybe Gerald was the exception. I decided to give him a chance. Not because I forgot what he said, not because I expected miracles, but because 35 years is a long time. And the man with the letter, the man who'd finally opened his eyes, that was the man I'd married all those years ago. He'd been buried under decades of entitlement and assumption, but he was still there. We combined our finances again, but with new rules. We both track expenses now. We both contribute to decisions. We both do housework. Gerald does laundry now. He's gotten better at it. He only turns things strange colors occasionally. He cooks 3 nights a week. Simple things, mostly. Pasta with jarred sauce. Grilled cheese that's actually golden instead of burned. Scrambled eggs that aren't rubber. He's learning. And more importantly, he's noticing. He thanks me when I cook. He comments on how nice the house looks. He asks about my day and actually listens to the answer. He notices when I'm tired and offers to handle dinner. He sees me now. Really sees me. Maybe for the first time in decades. Is it perfect? No. 35 years of habits don't disappear in 4 months. Sometimes I catch him about to say something about a purchase I've made, but then he stops himself. He remembers. He's trying. Patricia and James came for dinner last month. I cooked, but Gerald helped. He peeled potatoes. He set the table. He made the salad. When Patricia complimented the meal, Gerald said, "Dorothy did most of it. I just assisted. I'm still learning." Patricia looked at me and raised her eyebrows. I smiled. Progress. My friend Rose asked me recently if I ever regret not leaving him. The truth is, I considered it. During those early weeks, when every day brought a new reminder of how invisible I'd been, I thought about what my life would look like alone. A small apartment somewhere warm. Just me and my books and my garden and my peace. No one questioning my purchases. No one taking me for granted. But I also thought about the good years. The early years. The way he'd look at me when I came home from a long shift, like I was the best thing he'd seen all day. The way he'd dance with me in the kitchen to music from the radio. The way he held my hand through both my deliveries, through my father's funeral, through the hard times and the beautiful times. That man was still there. He'd just gotten lost somewhere along the way. What I've learned from all this is that invisibility is the silent killer of relationships. When someone becomes invisible, when their contributions go unnoticed and unappreciated, resentment builds like pressure in a pipe. Eventually, something bursts. In our case, it was Gerald's ridiculous demand for financial separation that burst the pipe. In a strange way, I'm grateful to his friend Stan for the terrible advice. It forced everything into the open. It made the invisible visible. I'm 62 years old now. If I'm fortunate, I have another 20 or 30 years ahead of me. I intend to spend them being seen, being appreciated, being valued. Whether that's with Gerald or on my own, that part is not negotiable. I will never allow myself to become invisible again. To any woman listening to this who feels invisible in her own home, I want you to know that you have choices. You can demand to be seen. You can stop doing the things no one notices until they stop being done. You can leave if nothing changes. Your time on this earth is too precious to spend it in the shadows. Step into the light. Make them see you. And if they can't or won't, then perhaps they don't deserve to have you in their lives at all. Gerald is in the kitchen right now making dinner. It's Tuesday, his night to cook. I can smell onions sautéing and garlic sizzling. He's attempting chicken stir-fry tonight. It might be terrible. It might be wonderful. Either way, he's trying. And that, after 35 years, is all I ever really wanted. I am so glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you enjoyed it, please show me by liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Leave a comment telling me which city you're watching from and what time it is there. I'm always curious to know where all you wonderful people are joining me from. If you'd like to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories here every single day. And now, two of my most popular stories will appear on the screen, so you can choose what to watch next.